Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Payton. Today we're going to be looking ahead to the 2022 season. We are talking Seahawks free agents that they should re-sign. These are the people that are no longer a Seahawk after the season is over, and there's a lot of key players that will be hitting free agency in 2022. They could enter the offseason among teams with the most cap space, which is a good thing, and it's one of the most positive things for the Seattle Seahawks. And also the salary cap is going to rise during the offseason. It's expected to hit $208 million opposed to the $182 million that it was in 2021. So all good news as we look ahead to 2022. Let's break down right now where else everyone in the league stands as far as cap space. This can obviously change. This is just currently what's predicted. Dolphins being at the number one spot with $75 million. Now, not too far down are the Seahawks at the 8th spot. Now, this can change, guys. I could see the Seahawks moving up even more, being in the top 5. Right now, they currently would have $53.62 million in cap space. Now, that's really good in comparison to a lot of teams. So we're going to talk about guys that we think that the Seattle Seahawks need to bring back in 2022. But I am going to ask you guys our pinned comment first. Before I give you guys my opinion, I want you to name me a player that the Seahawks should re-sign in 2022. Go down, get your votes in. This is what we're talking about on today's show. So I am definitely going to let you know my thoughts during this whole video. All right, we're going to work our way up. We're going to name you 5 free agents that the Seahawks should re-sign, and this is an order of importance, in my opinion, on how likely or how important it is for them to re-sign these guys. So the 5th guy I have is Gerald Everett. Now, you guys might be kind of saying, Meghan, why would you put him on the list? And I understand he's coming off, a couple not fantastic games, though last week he did look way better than the week prior. He signed a 1-year deal with Seattle last offseason. If you don't remember, he spent his first 4 years in Los Angeles with the Rams and Shane Waldron. When they hired Waldron as the offensive coordinator, Gerald Everett came along with him. Now, he's only scored 3 touchdowns in 2021, but I see a lot of potential in him. And we've talked about him here at Seahawks Today. We've talked about, the way that I think that they should be using him more. Now, again, this does not, to discredit the Seahawks and where they're saying, hey, he's fumbled a couple times. Maybe he hasn't proven himself enough. But I don't think that he'd be a very expensive option. And I do think that the Seahawks are pretty thin at tight end right now. I mean, Will Dissly is technically the number 2 tight end, Colby Parkinson, who we really haven't seen anything from, and Gerald Everett at tight end number 1. I don't know if that means that he should be the number 1 guy, but I would say that he's someone that I would reconsider signing. I do still think that there's a lot of potential for Everett. I think that he can grow as a player. I think he's with his offensive coordinator that, he spent his first 4 seasons with. I don't want to put one game on him, and that makes him the player that he is just because he had one off game. He knew it, he improved, and I only think that he is going to get better with time. So I'm putting Gerald Everett as my number 5 guy that the Seahawks should re-sign. Now, guys, something that I want to tell you guys to do is go check out this awesome deal, chatsports.com/Seahawks vest. Okay, there's this great vest. It's the Darius Rucker line. I know we've talked to you guys about this before, but if you are not aware, this was originally $89.99. It makes sense. It's a nice vest, and it's Darius Rucker. It's now $45. So you can get a quality licensed Seahawks gear, Darius Rucker, for $45. It can be a perfect Christmas gift, or if you just want it for yourself. But I'm telling you, sizes are running out. They are going away. So get this deal. I mean, it's 50% off. This is not going to last long. No wonder the sizes are going away. So check this out, chatsports.com/Seahawks vest. All right, the 4th guy that I think that the Seahawks should re-sign is DJ Reed. Now, again, DJ Reed has kind of been back and forth, hasn't been necessarily a standout cornerback number 1, but he did earn his spot as a starter in 2021. Seattle has definitely struggled at the cornerback situation, trying to figure out where the right answers are. Now, Trey Brown, we know, went out for the season. DJ Reed has really taken on an important role in Seattle, and I think that he's proven himself at least as a starter. I'm not saying that I don't think that the Seahawks should go out and get another guy. I do think that cornerback is a main priority for them, but he hasn't been terrible. He has allowed 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quarterbacks were 29 out of 56 on attempts, and he's had 7 pass breakups this year, no interceptions. Again, not someone that I'd say is you have to sign him, do or die, but he's someone that has worked well with this system. He's proven himself. He's gotten better, and I think that he could be good depth. And again, nothing too expensive to keep DJ Reed, in my opinion. He's worth keeping in Seattle. But now we're getting into the top 3, guys. This is where it gets a little bit more fun and interesting. And my number 3 guy is Ryan Neal. Ryan Neal, I love, guys. And I understand there might be some criticism with Ryan Neal, but he's been primarily used in dime packages. That's what we talked about, early on in the season. And when they did that, they were pretty successful. Now he's taking on this new role as a starter because Jamal Adams went out with his injury. Now, he has done this before last year when Jamal Adams was dealing with some groin issues. Ryan Neal came in, was a starter then. Now, I do like Seattle using him really in those dime packages. I think that's where Ryan Neal's used best, and I do think that he might struggle a bit as a starting guy, but I do think that he's worth re-signing. And I also know, fun fact, if you weren't sure about Ryan Neal, he wasn't sure about himself either, because last year he thought about quitting football. Now he's a starter for the Seattle Seahawks. Funny how things work out. So if we look at just what he's done this season in coverage, he's allowed 18 out of 23 attempts by quarterbacks. He's given up 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has had 2 pass breakups. So you can look at this and you can say, hey, 18 out of 23, that's not very good. But again, I think Ryan Neal is a guy that works well in certain systems. I'm not saying that Seattle should use him as a starter every game, but he's someone that I'd say is worth keeping. And this DB room has been a problem. As we said, they've had so many injuries as well that's not helping them. Jamal Adams out for the year, Marquise Blair out for the year, Trey Brown out for the year. They are struggling. And so when you have this many injuries on your team, the whole team's going to look a little bit different. That's just my opinion. And so Ryan Neal has really, I think, stepped up because he's had to. I like the Seahawks keeping him, and that's why I mentioned DJ Reed too. I do think that DJ Reed, he might not be a cornerback 1, but he deserves at least a CB2 spot. Maybe he's taking the place of Sidney Jones, and then maybe Jones gets cut. I don't know what happens with him, but I like the Seahawks keeping both DJ Reed and Ryan Neal. Now, we are going to talk about the main guy on this list in a little bit, but first I'm going to ask you guys to pick a DB. If you had to choose between DJ Reed and Ryan Neal, let me know what you think. Obviously, 2 different guys, 2 different positions, but we're just going to make you pick one. So go to the comments right now and type R if you're choosing DJ Reed, or type N if you're picking Ryan Neal. And by the way, these are reasons why you should stay subscribed to Seahawks Today, because we're going to keep you guys updated on everything that happens during this offseason. We're obviously going to keep you updated throughout the rest of this season, but as we talk about draft, as we talk about free agency, trade rumors, all of that stuff's going to come up. So make sure you guys are subscribed to our channel. Turn your notifications on. If you aren't subscribed, you can go to youtube.com/SeahawksTV. You can click the red button, whatever's easiest. Just do not miss out on any Seahawks content. All right, the second most important free agent that the Seahawks need to re-sign, in my opinion, is Al Woods. Al Woods has single-handedly, in my opinion, held this defensive line somewhat together. I mean, I'd say he's been the best defensive lineman in 2021 for Seattle. Now, he's jumped around a bunch in his career, ending up in Seattle this year. He didn't play last year. He opted out during COVID year. And at 34 years old, he's having his best season of his career. And I think that's pretty impressive. Now, maybe some of you guys are saying, hey, Al Woods is 34. Why would you want to re-sign a guy this age. Now, maybe you don't do a long-term deal with him, but the way that he's performing and the way that he's looked and helped Seattle, I don't see why there'd be a question on whether or not to re-sign him. He's fitting in well with this system. He's the only guy that's, I think, helping out this line and this whole defensive line. And if you compare him to what he did in 2019 when he was with Seattle before, it is better. In 2019, he only had 32 tackles. Already this year, he's had 42. Now, it has to be said he only played 14 games in 2019. He's had 3 tackles for loss this season. He had 3 in 2019, 1.5 sacks this year, 1 last year, and 3 pass breakups this year, 0 on 2019. Now, these stats, I think, are a bit misleading because even though, you can compare these and say, well, he didn't look terrible in 2019. Why did they, let him go after then? Well, I'd say that just by watching the games and seeing his toughness out on the field, I think that Al Woods has definitely stepped up since 2019. And when you look at this defensive line, I mean, it's clearly an area that the Seahawks are going to need to improve during the offseason, but I don't think Al Woods is one of them. I think you're looking at guys like Kerry Hyder Jr. You're saying, hey, we've got to, reconsider what we're doing with him. Maybe Rasheem Green. There's been other guys struggling. Al Woods, in my opinion, is not one of them. I'm keeping him if I'm Seattle, and I'm saying he's the only guy on this defensive line maybe worth re-signing. Now, that might be an overstatement, but he is definitely up there. Now, we do still have one other guy to tell you about, but just to recap, we've got Al Woods, we've got DJ Reed, and we've got, who else did we say? We said Al Woods, DJ Reed, Gerald Everett, and Ryan Neal. Now, we are going to show you guys some honorable mentions. These are not the guys on my list of need to re-sign, but Geno Smith, I do think that the Seahawks will end up re-signing him. His contract is up after the season. Rashad Penny, who we would have said 2 weeks ago, absolutely do not re-sign. I mean, after his breakout game, maybe it's worth re-signing him. I do think that the injuries have to play a part into whether or not you want to go, create another contract for him. But if he plays like how he did last week, you'd want to re-sign him any day. Alex Collins, who I originally thought was going to be a guy that Seattle should re-sign, he's been struggling a bit, and I wouldn't be so upset if Seattle decided to, call it quits with Collins. And Will Dissly, as we talk tight end, someone that could potentially end up in Seattle next year. Again, he's not a number 1 tight end. So if they want to use him in the depth role, sure, that's fine. I don't see any of these guys besides maybe Rashad Penny really taking on a starting role. So that's our honorable mentions. But my most important free agent that the Seahawks need to re-sign is Quandre Diggs. I think you guys knew that was coming, but Quandre Diggs has arguably been the Seahawks' best player this season. I mean, without a doubt, in my opinion. And, and it's funny because you think about Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams signed a 4-year, $70 million extension last season, and Quandre Diggs is out here going, hey, maybe I want some money now. And so this leads the question to whether or not, Quandre Diggs is even going to want to sign an extension with Seattle. He's gained a little bit of power. And I'd say my strong take is that Diggs will want at least $10 million. And to be fair, I think that he's earned that. $10 million per year, to be specific. I think that Quandre Diggs has proven himself as a safety. And I know that him and Jamal Adams are used very differently on the field, but he's outplayed him this season. I think that's just the obvious. So in my opinion, Quandre Diggs can't ask for that much money. He's absolutely earned that. So whether or not Seattle will, want to do that. And by the way, maybe Seattle offers that. He goes, explores the market and says, hey, I've got just as good of an offer somewhere else. I want to go there instead. But I will ask you guys, because Quandre Diggs has been good, but has he been good enough to pay him the money? Is Quandre Diggs worth the money? Type Y for yes if you think absolutely re-sign and pay him whatever he needs, or type N for no if you are passing on Quandre Diggs. I'm saying yes. Clearly he's my number 1 guy that the Seahawks should re-sign. And I look at these stats. He's had 75 tackles this season. He's had 6 pass breakups and 4 interceptions. And he has been the star guy on this Seahawks defense and on the Seahawks team. So the question becomes, will Seattle want to pay both Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs? They already decided on Adams. So, I mean, unless some trade is happening there, which I don't see happening, they're going to have to pay both of them if they want both guys on their roster. And I could see it getting a little bit competitive because they decided to pay Jamal Adams so much money. Maybe Quandre Diggs is going to be wanting, maybe not as much, but around about same as Jamal Adams. So I'm going to tell you guys about more guys that we think the Seahawks should at least reconsider when we go into 2022. We're going to talk, obviously, free agency around the league. But for now, these are my top 5 free agents that the Seattle Seahawks should sign. Number 1, Quandre Diggs. Number 2, Al Woods. 3, Ryan Neal. 4, DJ Reed. And 5, Gerald Everett. Make sure you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments.